show the footage. If you got bodies, show it to us. If you got the saucers, show us the Daggum saucers. I think the American public needs to see that stuff.
All right, Mr. Burchett, it's been a conversation I know you've been talking about quite lately. I just want to first off kind of tell me how this interest started with you.
Well, at a very young age, my parents encouraged me to read a lot. And, I guess nowadays you let your kid ride his bicycle over a mile away from the house to the library, they'd probably arrest you. But back then it was pretty cool growing up in West Hills. We'd drive right across Kingston Pike to a little public library, and they had on the table, it was just set up a bunch of books, and there was all this wild stuff, and there was something on UFOs, and I picked one up and just started reading about it. We've had a history of them in this country since 1947 was an incident that happened in Roswell, New Mexico. The military intelligence issued a press release that said we've recovered a saucer, and then the next day they came out and said no, in fact it was a hot air balloon. And military intelligence is a whole lot like congressional ethics. It really doesn't exist. But to think that they made that big of a blunder is suspect to me. Why wouldn't they just say, oh, it was a wrecked airplane ran into a tractor, some drunk farmer found it or something and made this claim. It's just, and there's just been time and time again. Now we have Navy pilots, the best in the world, that are coming forward and saying in fact, we've had 14, I believe, documented near miss incidents in the air. These are the best trained pilots in the world, the best in the world, riding around in a $50 million aircraft. And now they're bringing forth footage, these Tic Tac videos, not TikTok like the Chinese communist propaganda that's invading all of our phones, but it's Tic Tac, like the candy. And these pilots are literally following these craft, and they go underwater and they come out, and they have no heat trail. You got to ask yourself, why would they lie about it? When they make these reports, they're brought off the flight line, and they're made to, they say they're debriefed, but they're really interrogated for 8 hours. I've literally had pilots tell me in a setting that they've destroyed the video because they don't want to be interrogated. They don't want to lose their spot on the line, and it's not going to go anywhere anyway. And they don't want to blemish on their record. And we've just seen this time and time again. And these are decorated veterans. It doesn't mean a whole heck of a lot up here in Washington, but back in Tennessee, it means a lot that a decorated veteran comes forth. And why would they want to wreck their career? Look, all I want is transparency. I think that's what you all in the media are always after, transparency. Let's get to the bottom of it. Quit sending us these redacted files. Let the American people see what they show us in private. And it's time to get this out in the open. And we're going to have professionals. It's going to be a real hearing. We're not going to bring in a flying saucer, a little green man talking about getting probed by somebody. This is going to be the real deal. And now you're seeing the Pentagon seeing that the American public is showing some interest, and over half the American public believes in something else out there. And now the Pentagon is looking for money, and they'll ask for a few $1 billion to study it. And we don't need to give them any more money. They lose over $1 billion a year in their audits. They have not passed an audit in the history of auditing the Pentagon. You can't name me another institution up here that literally loses over $1 billion. Department of Defense, 60% of their assets are unaccounted for. If that was a business, or they'd be in jail, and they should be. And so I just want the files, turn loose of the files, the unredacted files, the photographs, the film. Let the American public see it. Let them see some of the things that I've seen in private, and let them make up their own mind.
You were quoted, I think, talking to maybe one of the networks, I think it was a week or so ago, saying something to the effect of, you have seen video that I think is classified at this point, that you said, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, that the American public is not ready to see yet. They're
I was being facetious. The American, that's what they think. The American, that's their arrogance, that the American public is not ready to see this stuff. But I think Tim Burchett thinks that the American public needs to see this stuff, and they need to see more of it. This should open the floodgates, and I believe it will.
I know you're very good at speaking candidly, and I'm curious if you do so here. What are we talking about in terms of what we're seeing, what you have seen with your own two eyes in terms of being a part of these groups and there in DC? What kind of footage are you seeing with your own eyes that you think more people need to see?
Well, it's funny. I've seen some things pretty incredible. I've had people literally come to my house that were afraid of retaliation to show me things. But it's what I haven't seen. You know, I went down to Florida. I was supposed to be briefed. Representative Luna and Representative Gates, who are both from Florida, you're supposed to be briefed down there at the base in a skiff, a secure thing. You gotta take your cell phones off. You can't take a Fitbit. I don't wear a Fitbit. You can't take any electronic devices in for fear of recording or whatever, or some sort of sabotage. It's exactly like when you go see the president of the United States. You put everything and lock it in a locker, and you keep the key. And we were told all this stuff we were going to see, and we're going to talk to these pilots. Well, we get down there in this meeting, and we look at the synopsis of the meeting, and there's nothing over what they said they were. And here I am flying down there. I take 2 days out of my life. I don't have much time off from up here, and they're playing this stupid game with us. The general is, and they tell us that we don't have the clearance to see that. And brother, we've got the highest clearances there are. If it's out there, I'm supposed to pretty much be able to see it. And we were told we were going to talk to pilots. We were going to see footage. We were going to see all this stuff. Well, the pilots come in. I mean, they turn us away. The general sends us up to his office, and we call DC, and we make sure that the top brass understands what the heck's going on. They bring us a nice fruit tray, and it's funny because they had microphones under the table. I mean, this is really Bush League, and we unplugged their microphones for them, and then they brought us this fruit tray, and then we go. Then we made a few phone calls, and lo and behold, they said, "We want you back down there." And the general, he's got to leave. He's got to go somewhere. And so they bring in these pilots, and there's 3 or 4 of them. I can't remember now, and you had Secret Service in the room and others, and the Secret Service was getting very nervous. And the pilots would explain, the pilots described craft that they've tailed and seen that did not match anything of any of our enemies or allies in the entire world. Now we've got footage of them doing things that defy all the laws of physics, and so at some point they're going to have to come forth with some of this stuff. And you had pilots tell me that some of these pilots have told me how they destroy the footage, because when they come back to base, they're interrogated 8 hours. And so it's just it's a cat and mouse game, and you've got a really compartmentalized government that has passed some of this information on to business. And here we are trying to have these hearings. And NASA, we've called NASA in, and guess what? This week they backed out. We had a witness tell us they couldn't come because they were getting pressure from the Pentagon. Now, either they exist or they don't exist. I put an amendment in on the FAA reauthorization that said that if a commercial pilot comes across something that they can identify in the air, they are is supposed to report, and the footage is supposed to be reported to Congress. The Intelligence Committee blocked that bill. we were told the intelligence community, and I'm not, it's the industrial war complex, these war pimps that we have up here in Washington, they want to control everything and anything that has to do with the dollar. And so we're just going to keep pushing.
Let me ask you this, from the videos that you have seen, from the stories you have heard from people up in the sky, if that footage, if what people were telling you, if those videos come to light publicly for the American people to see, what do you think people's reaction would be to it?
I hope they're angry that the American, or that this government, and it's both parties, and I hope they're angry that they hid this from them. Because you got to imagine, if there's an energy source that these things are traveling and the speeds that they are achieving, and they're not showing a heat source. So you got to imagine, if there's some sort of energy source that they could do this out in if society had a hold of. Imagine we wouldn't be having all these wars in the Middle East, because guess what? We wouldn't need the oil. We wouldn't need all this, these government programs. We wouldn't need all these people, these jobs that they're creating. We wouldn't be destroying the environment to dig up stuff. We could power the world. It's Tesla's dream, and so I would hope that, at some point we get to that point where we trust the American public, because that's really, it's about trust. It's about corruption. It's about greed. And all those things are really what runs this government.
Yeah.
They don't trust us. We don't trust them for good reason. And, the corruption of controlling this stuff is beyond belief.
From your best perspective, and I know you've hinted at it a couple times through this conversation, but why is it you think that there is footage, there are, firsthand accounts that we don't know about? Why do you think this is not being publicly shared?
Yeah, because the arrogance, and if it's been reverse engineered, then why are they not releasing that to the general public to make our lives better? And I submit to you, go back to the greed issue, and control and arrogance. Again, the Kennedy assassination's over 50 years ago, yet the presidents of the United States repeatedly have refused to release those files. Nobody's even alive that's in those files. The ones I've seen, so redacted, just a big old piece of Swiss cheese is what it looks like.
Just to be clear, are you saying what you have seen, do you think it's something, international technology we haven't seen, or do you believe that you have seen videos of extraterrestrial life forms and UFOs?
I'm 100% convinced that it is not any of our allies or any of our enemies' aircraft, that it did not come from this world. Either it's from our skunk works, which means it was something they recovered and they reverse engineered, or it is something extraterrestrial. I'm convinced. There's no other explanation, because if it's the Russians, they wouldn't be battling in Ukraine. It's China, they would control us.
Do you think we'll ever see it, videos like that? Do you think there's a timeline that you could feel comfortable saying?
I think what's going to happen is somebody's going to leak something out. And I hope that they get it to you all and it gets out quick, because, here I am, the 435th most powerful member of Congress, and I'm trying to have a hearing, and people are telling me they can't testify because they are receiving pressure from the Pentagon. And the intelligence community kills my amendments. So I think we're over the target, and they know it. And they're just trying to hold the flood back right now. They want to control this thing. And if what I think is getting ready to happen happens, and I don't, disappear or something crazy. Just kidding. No, but if I think from my sources, they tell me people are wanting to come forward, and this could really open the floodgates. I think it's time for this country to take back our country. We need to tell the folks at the Pentagon they work for us. Dadgummit, we don't work for them.
And that's exactly the point. This is an issue of government transparency. We can't trust a government that does not trust its people. Can you give me the names and titles of the people with direct firsthand knowledge and access to some of these crash retrieval programs, and maybe which facilities, military bases the recovered material would be in? And I know a lot of Congress talked about we're going to go to Area 51, and and there's nothing there anymore anyway. It's just and we move like a glacier. And as soon as we announce it, I'm sure the moving vans would pull up. But please.
I can't discuss that publicly, but I did provide that information both to the Intel committees and the Inspector General.
And we could get that in the SCIF if we were allowed to get in a SCIF with you. Would that be probably what you would think?
Sure, if you had the appropriate accesses, yeah.
What special access programs cover this information, and how is it possible that they have evaded oversight for so long?
I do know the names. Once again, I can't discuss that publicly and how they've evaded oversight. In a closed setting, I can tell you the specific tradecraft used.
All right. Which private corporations are directly involved in this program? How much taxpayer money has been invested in these programs, to your knowledge? I mean, we know we audit the Pentagon every year, and I've been here 5 years, and they failed the dadgum thing every year. They lose over $1 billion a year, we think, and I've told the Department of Defense maybe 60% of their assets are unaccounted for, whatever the heck that means. In the public sector, you go to jail for that kind of crap. So tell me.
Yeah, I know when I'm $1 off of my DTS travel voucher, I get hammered, but it seems like it doesn't work the other way.
If you sell over $600 worth of stuff on eBay now, you get a call from the IRS. So please, what corporations?
Yeah, I don't know the specific metrics towards the end of your question. The specific corporations I did provide to the committees in specific divisions, and I spent 11 and a half hours with both Intel committees. So.
Okay. Has there been an active U.S. government disinformation campaign to deny the existence of unidentified aerial phenomena? And if so, why?
I can't go beyond what I've already espoused publicly about that.
My name's Shawn Ryan. I'm a former Navy SEAL and former CIA contractor, a SEAL for 6 years. Then I jumped over the agency, did 9 years over there, got over 20 combat deployments altogether. I mean, I think the benefit of protection to the whistleblowers is getting information out into the public that should have been out a long time ago. And now that the government is offering some sort of protection for the whistleblowers, I think it's going to give people the courage to come out and release some of this information that needs to be released. I do believe that there are certain programs that civilians should not have access or know about, depending on what we don't want our information, our classified information, to fall into the wrong hands. With that being said, yeah, it would be great if the public did have access to it. However, we do have to understand that there are people that, if this information was all released, it could fall into the wrong hands as well. Maybe it's already into the wrong hands, but that's not for me, to decide. Do I expect full disclosure? Yeah. I don't expect full disclosure. I don't have that much confidence in our government. So. Congressman Tim Burchett, welcome to the show.
Appreciate. Just call me Tim.
All right, we'll call you Tim from here on out.
Right on.
For starters, I just wanted to say thank you to you and your staff for getting me into the whistleblower, the first ever congressional hearing on UFO, UAP stuff a couple months back. That was really eye-opening, and it was nice to see our government talking about it, and I hope is it going to happen again?
Yeah, and thank your boy Eli Crane, because he's the one who told me about you and stuff, and asked, and so that, and my staff is wonderful, by the way. But yeah, I went to McCarthy, went to Speaker, we wrote a letter, myself, Luna, and Jared Moskowitz, they're all out of Florida. Gates wrote the letter, and it said we wanted a select committee. And a select committee would allow us a little more power, and I went to see Kevin McCarthy about it first week back after the August recess, and he said that, in fact, no, we would not get a select committee. but he would give me another hearing. He said, this stuff's really popular. And I said, well, why didn't we get a hearing? And why can't we have select committee? And I didn't think we were going to get it because nobody wants to turn over power to anything up there. And he said, the intelligence committee had, we'd stepped on some toes, and intelligence community, I believe, too. And so, but we could have another committee meeting, committee hearing, or whatever you want to call it. So, yeah, we're going to have one very similar to the last one. We just have to change the focus. I wanted granted, I was not able to chair the committee, but I was steering the committee, if you know what I mean.
I know what you mean. I mean, it was
my deal. Our deal. We got myself and Luna and Moskowitz and Matt Gates and the rest of us. We'd sort of formulated this idea way back and pushed it together and tried to get a date and locked them down and just kept hammering them. And then, of course, the UFO community, it's freaking worldwide, man. I do every weekend. I'm always on. I try not to turn anybody down. I do a lot of these podcasts and stuff overseas in England. I mean, I do them from Knoxville, Tennessee. I don't travel much, as you could imagine. But yeah, it's huge, and people all over the country contacted the speaker's office apparently and the other members, and then lo and behold, we got that first one, and then now they want to do another. So I'll take it as a win.
Yeah, definitely. How many of these whistleblowers did you guys have?
I'd say we probably, I don't know. I had a list of them, but we Pentagon. One person confided in us that they'd gotten a call from the Pentagon and they decided not to come, and one of them was loosely attached to some group with NASA, and they were going to do their own thing, which we had a meeting with them this week, which was bogus. And two, now government. Now you got to realize government. Chuck Schumer's coming out with a bill on the NDAA, the National Defense Reauthorization Act, that will say that, and all the UFO people are going crazy. This is the greatest thing in the world. They're going to create this entity within government, within the Pentagon, that anything to do with UFOs goes to them, and they decide if it gets out. So, and guess what? If it's a national defense issue, or if it's a government security issue or whatever, they won't release it. Well, guess what? All of it is. Yeah. They're never going to release. That just puts another layer. All I'm saying is, brother, I can handle it. You can handle it. Put it out there. Let us see it. Because I've seen some stuff that defies any kind of logic, any kind of science that we have now.
I would imagine you guys had thousands of whistleblowers that wanted to appear in front of Congress.
I don't know the numbers, but it's a day-to-day occurrence.
How did you and the rest of the team that you had assembled, how did you guys decide on which three you wanted?
It wasn't, we cast a pretty broad net, and, we probably, I don't know, 15 or 20 targets that I knew of that would be good in certain areas. And then they just kept whittling it down. And I didn't want 15 or 20. I didn't want a cattle call because it's not, it's not conducive to the issue. I wanted people with firsthand knowledge is what I wanted. And military to me is the ticket.
Yeah.
And I knew if they discredited Grush, we had these two pilots. They got nothing. Why would they want to endanger the reputation of their career? I mean, by coming out with this. Yeah. They have no ulterior motives. And so, a little prodding, and they came forward, and they told a great story.
Mr. Graves, again, I'd like to know, how do you know that these were not our aircraft?
Some of the behaviors that we saw in a working area, we would see these objects being at 0.0 Mach, that's zero airspeed, over certain pieces of the ground. So what that means, just like a river, if you throw a bobber in, it's going to float downstream. These objects were staying completely stationary in Category 4 hurricane winds. These same objects would then accelerate to supersonic speeds, 1.1, 1.2 Mach, and they would do so in very erratic and quick behaviors that I don't have an explanation for.
Okay. Have you spoken to commercial and military pilots that have seen these off of our East Coast?
I have.
Okay.
So just say Grush wasn't even there.
2 military pilots, best in the world, best trained, best aircraft, everything. Sworn testimony, swear to God, and before Congress, and that they had chased a craft. And they all said, this is nothing that we have, and it's not our, and I've said this, everybody says, well, it's probably Russia, it's probably China. I mean, you're a military guy. If Russia had that, would they be bogged down in Ukraine? And if China had that, they'd own us more than they do now.
Yeah.
And so the only other alternative is it's something we've reversed engineered, which means it's something we've recovered and are flying it around in our military space, or it's something from outer space. Either way, it's something from outer space. You know, that's another thing.
The automobile.
When you said that, how technologically advanced, it reminds me of the first hearing that they had when I was there of the Intelligence Committee, which was open to the public. Intelligence Committee is kind of like a little fraternity. They keep stuff within, and it's supposed to be secret and stuff and all that. So they open this thing up. They're going to have this big UFO UAP hearing. I'm the only congressman that shows up. They bring in these two guys from the Pentagon, and honestly, I don't think they could spell UFO. They didn't have a clue, and that goes back to my compartmentalization. They were telling the truth as far as they knew it. They were asked several questions about well-documented UFO incidents. One of them was a case where UFOs were spotted in a nuclear reactor, literally shut down. And it's a documented case that these things were spotted in the same period of time in this country. So we were asked about it. They asked about it. They didn't have a clue. And I remembered they showed this video, which was the worst video they could have shown. It was I think it was one of these crazy aluminum balloons, that fly, that, not aluminum, but they look metallic, They have a metallic surface to them because when they hit electrical wire, they'll short it. But it was up at high speeds. And this pilot was filming it with his cell phone, not his cameras, but his cell phone as he's flying by at some crazy speed. And you couldn't tell if it was a shadow inside of the canopy of the airplane or this other object. We couldn't, and then I remember it was asked, Adam Schiff of all people asked the best question. He said, "What exactly am I looking at?" He said, "Can you slow that thing down?" And it was a 20-second film, most technologically advanced country in the world, and they couldn't slow it down. Isabel Burchett, my little girl, could have slowed that dadgum video down, but they couldn't slow it down to show us, and they didn't know what they were even looking at. And you've got the Tic Tac videos, not TikTok like the Chinese communist, Tic Tac like the candy. And they had one of the pilots that was involved in it in the audience, and he was not even allowed to come testify.
What?
So, yeah. So he had gotten in with press credentials because I'm talking to the guy out there. And so, and I walked by the press, and I was told, another thing, I was told I was going to get to ask a question. And I'm still amazed at this. And I'm easing towards the thing, and I get a text from one of the guys on the Republican, say, "Hey, Burchett, sorry, you're not going to be able to ask a question." Because I was going to rip them a new one, because I knew a little bit more about this than they weren't paying attention. They didn't care. They were just doing it to check a box, say, well, we're looking into it, and I had one of the members say, we got more important things to do than this. I say, more important than a $60 million aircraft, which you've stated, we've had 14 near-miss incidents with the best trained pilots in the world, and we don't know what the hell it is in our own airspace. So I walked by the press, and they said, "What'd you think about this, Congressman?" And they were all kind of joking about it. I go, "We got hosed." Boom. Whew. They turned on me. Not turned on me, they turned to me. And I talked about what just happened and how you all got took in this whole deal. And then it exploded.
Yeah.
You have a government that's told us at least since 47 these things don't exist, but now they're telling us they exist and they want your money. That's the other thing. They want our money. They want government, the Pentagon, NASA, everybody's going to want money to study these things. In the Pentagon report, I think it's 56 pages, read the first paragraph, and it said we're going to use the word robust. I don't know if it's robust resources or whatever to study these things. It's all about money.
Yeah.
It's just, it is taken from you and me to keep them in power. And, I'm not critical of anybody's beliefs on that stuff because it doesn't affect what I think is my job as a congressman, is to get the facts out there. Just show the footage. If you got bodies, show it to us. If you got the saucers, show us the dadgum saucers. I think the American public needs to see that stuff.
Who else have you met with? I believe you met with Dr. Stephen Greer as well.
I know Stephen pretty well. He came over and he sent me a nice book, which I have looked at. Had dinner with him one day. He's jacked. He's a pretty muscular guy. Louis Elizondo, whatever. I can't ever say his name.
What did Stephen Greer want to talk to you about?
Just about how he's involved with, this is what he tells me, that some military outfits that are going in and going to get some of these craft, get them out, and more or less. And, I don't know. I don't know. Civilians are messing with special ops. I don't know. I mean, they're operators. I don't know what all's going on with that. But he talked to me a little bit about that and some other things. And
what is it that he wants you to do with that information?
I don't know, other than just to know it and just share it maybe, and to say that it's real. But he has a different, everybody has a different belief in this thing.
Yeah.
And there again, I just believe something else is out there. I don't get into all that. I don't condemn them for it. I've got buddies of mine that are Jewish. I got buddies of mine that are Hindu. I've got some Muslim friends. I don't condemn them. Maybe not believe it because I'm a Christian, but I don't condemn them for it. I don't think it's my job to do that or stand in judgment. But I usually I just contain it. Mm-hmm. I just put it in my head, and then because really all I see my job as a congressman is just to be transparent, just to get it out there.
Lou Elizondo. He's somebody I've tried to get on here numerous times, and it's like, I don't think it's going to happen. But what did he want to talk to you about?
Just about,
because this guy's supposedly
he was on the inside. They claimed they didn't have this organization, and yet he was that organization. It was $11 million, I think, funded. I believe at that time that funded. It was a senator out of Nevada, Democrat, and he was part of the Skinwalker Ranch thing too, the research there, the federal government did there. And he headed up that department. And they said, basically it doesn't exist. And then sure enough, there he was running it. And again, the tail doesn't know what the rest of the body's doing, and it's just, and that's government. That's compartmentalized government. It's just too big.
So what did he want to talk to you about?
I think Lou, he's a dear friend, actually.
Is he?
Yes, he is. We stay in contact pretty regular, not telepathically, but I think he just wanted to encourage me. He just said, you're on the right path on this thing, dude. I've talked to him periodically about ideas I've had and people, if I think that they are legit or these stories, and I say, I sort of got this feeling on this one here. And I don't know that I trust Lou because he was with the government, but I do, as much as I trust any of these cats. But he has not lied to me yet. He's not steered me wrong, and he's the real deal. And he was kept, as a lot of them are. He was probably I don't know that he put his hands on anything physically, but he probably kept at arm's length. When he would get close, they would move it or do something else.
Well, if you don't mind me asking, is there anybody in particular that you think is a government disinformation agent?
I'll just leave it at probably somebody you've mentioned in this conversation.
Okay.
And the problem is they don't know it. That's the key to this whole thing,
How would they not know it?
because they're shown things that are false. Or they've brought people to them that are false. Or something's created. Because all they got to do is put a bug in somebody's ear, and then the government's getting another $1 billion to study some crazy project somewhere.
Interesting.
Does that make sense?
It does. So the disinformation agent. Well, it does and it doesn't. So a disinformation agent is there to, one, discredit
Couple things.
somebody.
Get people off track, and two, to bring in more money. Just to keep the fire lit enough. Just get you salivating enough to where you're asking a lot of questions, folks like myself. But I don't want any more money. I don't want the government to get. The government doesn't need it. They need to go back, cut billions of dollars, trillions actually. But that's beside the point.
So if they're discrediting somebody, how would that open people's checkbooks
Well,
up?
if somebody getting close to the real issue, they'll discredit them. Other people, they'll let them go down the rabbit hole so they can get the money.
Gotcha. So it's either one or the other. Yeah. Who do you think, in your opinion, you don't have to say it because I know you talked to all of these people, who is given you the most legitimate information?
They all have. They've all given me a piece of something that's real.
Okay.